Welcome to the NerdLore podcast. We talk stories, theories, and lore. I'm one of your three hosts, Shiny Shoes.
Then I'm Crashstarling.
I'm Skandle, baby.
And today we're going to dive back into one of our favorite worlds, conspiracy theories and things that make you think. So,
I hate that. You know, Avril Lavigne was replaced by like a robot. It's so stupid.
Skandle is going to
make you go.
Skandle's going to take it off.
Okay, sorry. I don't know if you guys know that song or not. It's gonna get real bright up in here because I'm about to open up my notes and it's gonna be right here on this big screen. So, wow!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Is it really bad?
It's so bright.
Different. It was bright.
Yeah,
Okay,
bright.
let me move it over. My bad.
That
No,
was
stop it.
No,
Here,
dude,
is
it's
that
like
better?
wait till you go back and watch how much brighter it is. You're like, oh.
You can see, yeah. Okay. Okay. So, what I want to do, I'm not really sure if I call it conspiracy theory, but it's interesting. It can fall into like this kind of category, and I am interested to see what you guys think about this. So, Tolkien, right, the author of The Hobbit, and the inspiration for Lord of the Rings and things like that. He claimed that the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series were not fantasy, and he would get mad when people would claim that this was fantasy, that his books that it was fantasy and not like him explaining the history of. Hold on, let me get there. Okay, so
I was hoping you were going to talk about this part of it because this is one of the best. Dude.
It's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tolkien hated it, right? So when people would say that this was not based on truth or whatever, he'd get mad. He'd scream like, "No, this is not an analogy. It's not a metaphor. This is what he learned from reading." And the reading he's talking about is he went to Oxford, to university, and while he was there, he got into the basement of the library. And in the basement of the library, there was these old books that nobody read because they were written in ancient Scandinavian. Now, just so coincidentally, that's the language he studied at Oxford. It was ancient Scandinavian. So,
As you do when you're at Oxford.
yeah. So he basically, what he read in these books is that these books were a history of Europe 6,500 years prior. I didn't look. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I didn't look up to see when Tolkien was alive. But 6,500 years before that. So whatever that is. So anywhere between 6,500 and 7,000 years ago.
Yeah, ballpark minus what, 4,000, minus 5,000 somewhere.
Yeah. So if you look at these books, if you look at Europe 6,500 years ago, the Europe was connected. The British Isles were connected to the continent, what's known now as Doggerland. Maybe if you look at old maps, you're able to see this. He says and he wrote letters to people explaining what these books said. And in these letters, he wrote that Lord of the Rings was about Europe 6,500 years ago, and the Irish were the hobbits, and the Nords were the elves. And if you look at the buildings that the hobbits lived in, they're really, really close and very, very similar to old time Celtic architecture. And that the Hobbit shrines look like early Celtic settlements, and the elves were Nords, the Vikings, and wizards like Gandalf were druid priests. Beyond Tolkien's memory, modern science itself shows that the ancient world was full of various humanoid species associated and interbreeding with each other, modern man included.
So there were some druids back when?
Yeah, my guess is those were like priests for the Nords or the Vikings. That's my guess, the way it is. Or it could have been just another not faction, but you know what I mean.
We can call druids what they are here, and they're nature wizards.
Yeah, roamers. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe they roamed between everybody, and that's it would make sense compared if you compare it to the stories. So what do y'all think? Do you think he's crazy? I mean, you kind of got to be crazy to create an entire elven language, right?
A little bit, but like his stuff is good.
But it would explain why he's able to, why like it takes 14 pages to describe a setting, because he's literally describing what the Earth looked like back then.
There's a lot, like so much awesome with this theory, and like looking into it, just because there's a kid that was trying to explain this silliness to me at one time, or possibility, and I was like going through it, and it's so good because we don't know what was going on in England that time besides what was written accounts. That's it. That's all. I mean, that's all we got from back then. So could this have happened? I think absolutely. I mean, even let's say maybe there weren't wizards, but maybe there weren't. But I would say this: think if like me or you went back to negative 4,000, 5,000 BC, and we showed up, and we just like, hey, it's maybe something simple, some kind of simple contraption, like, hey, look, I just made a pulley. Like, them seeing that kind of stuff, they're like, yo, is this dude a wizard?
Or like, because they travel so much and roam around so much that they've been injured, and they've found the use of certain plants that have healing properties, like aloe vera, and they carry that around with themselves, and when they come into towns or in contact with other races and somebody gets injured, and they use this herbal magic to heal the wounds of the people or whatever.
Imagine we learned how to make meth, and you just gave that to like a person that was hurt or something, and they just like ran a mile and then went and punched a tree down. People are gonna be like, yo, that guy does magic stuff. So like, if you just learned like a lot of things back then, as you're saying, you could definitely convince people you're a wizard.
Yeah. Or like some sort of like priest of healing, if you knew how to do things like the Native Americans here had things like if you like kept a willow branch between your mouth, like, and bit down on it and held it there for a little while, that it released, is it acetate? It's something, whatever's in headache relief medication.
Acetaminophen?
Yeah, or something like that. And it releases that and it gets rid of a headache.
That was, you said, yeah, it's probably that, but that was the most specific. Like, he just knew that off the. Hold on.
Yeah, that's because that's what it is. It's caffeine and acetaminophen. Dude, he works at big chain.
I know.
And he stocks those shelves all the time.
I know, but I didn't realize he was reading everything he found. What are the ingredients to every ramen?
It's noodle and sugar and salt. That's it. I mean, that's what you got.
To be fair.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah. No, like, it would be so hard to say that this isn't true, because now if did they carry a ring to a volcano and all that, maybe and even you think about it, like orcs, think about what orcs look like in movies. They look like Neanderthals, like old prehistoric man.
Okay.
Wait, you got something?
I do.
Okay,
Did you tell?
Something too.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so what if, let's say that these were written in ancient Scandinavian, right? And the stories that he wrote, while may not be like factual, right? But what if they are stories or parables from the religions that the ancient Scandinavians had? That this story was about, a young boy who took a ring to fight. You know what I mean? Like, because it does seem like a epic, right? Like that, like that version of a story, like an epic, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what a lot of religious stories are about, right? Moses and parting the great, the Red Sea, all these different stories are epics, right? So it could be, and I just thought about that just now, that would be a cool thing, is that he was rereading religious text or something, right?
So think that, and that actually makes a lot of sense too. Think of if, let's say, humanity wipes out. Let's say we're all gone. Boom, gone. Couple people survive. Maybe like they get frozen or something. Something silly happens. A robot raises them. I don't know. Thousands and thousands of years from now, they come back and they find just civilization overrun by plants, like, you know, the forest is taken back over, but they keep finding these damn Bibles everywhere. And they're looking at them, and they all are sharing the same stories, you know? That this might be what have happened to the same thing with Tolkien. Maybe he found, you know, like you said, that version of the Bible. That'd be interesting.
Well, we all know how the Nords and the Vikings are real big into their, I don't really know if I'd call it religion, you know, but a lot of them believed in Valhalla and all that stuff for a long time, and yeah, they're real big in their stories. We covered that in one of our previous podcasts, Norse mythology. Feel free to check that one out on Spotify or.
Just wait till the end. I'll get there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. I wish that there are more people that just spoke Scandinavian and had these ancient texts. Like, that would be cool to hear from other people what they say about it. That'd be cool too.
What were you gonna say, Crash?
I was gonna say, even more interesting. Not even more interesting, but
I was gonna
like
say, dang, okay.
All right.
Bad.
My thing's better than yours. One little tidbit that I feel like you guys probably, you know, be aware of is, do you guys know the Uncanny Valley effect? Any idea? No. Okay. So, like, do you ever get really creeped out when you see like a human face, but it's just not acting human? Yeah. Like, think like horror stories, like the way ghost faces kind of like blend, like they're human, but the way they're moving and the way that they're acting is just off, and it creeps you out.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. So the Uncanny Valley effect is a psychological. It's not even conscious. It's a subconscious fear that is, you know, generationally, like it's basically programmed into our psyche, right? And this fear is that anything that looks similar to human but isn't human that we can identify scares us. And the reason that is because there were so many different kinds of not Homo sapiens, but
humanoid.
Humanoid that used to run around the entire world, right? One of those human species, or one of those humanoid species, was a hobbit-like creature that inhabited Ireland several thousand years ago. So more than likely, like even like religious texts, this could be storytelling from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know how old he did identified as that, what, 6,500 years before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before he was like,
whatever he was reading it. So I don't know what year that would have been.
That's a lot closer. I mean, I would say that's closer to Pangea time, but somebody would be like, actually, this is when that part of the world was born. But you got to assume, because we have continental drift, like
1892 is when he was born. So he would have been like in the early 1900s whenever he went to Oxford to look for stuff. So
yeah,
so
like,
pretty close, right?
Like,
yeah. So
minus 5,000. Yeah,
44, 40, negative 44, 43, or 40, whatever, BC, 4,300.
Well, that's what he could definitely be identifying, like texts about, like the hobbits themselves could be like, he said they're Irish, right? Like they're from Ireland. They could be like this thing. What's interesting then is that like some of the other subspecies could equate to some of the other humanoids that were running around, like Chinese said, Neanderthals.
Yep.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's something, I don't like religious texts.
It doesn't have to be religious text.
Yeah, it could be anything. Like, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean is like, let's say it is or isn't, right? So it is. So he like walked up, like he basically stepped upon by accident, or rather by complete coincidence, you know, like more like textbooks and then stories, right?
Yeah.
So they could or could not be religious.
Right. But could be like Aesop's fables.
Right.
Yeah. Their story times. That'd be a good way into it as well. But there'd be no way for him to know that from like these ancient texts. So it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
I wonder if those texts still exist.
I would like to see those. I would also like to see timelines of, you know, what was happening. So I would like to see, you know, what exactly was happening in minus 45 BC. What's going on in that area then? You know, I think it'd just be neat to see that kind of stuff. to kind of compare it to what he's talking about and what's going on. Yeah.
Well, it would be pretty like anticlimactic. It'd be like watching National Geographic, except a lot of the animals are probably extinct, and there's people that kind of look like humans, but they're not really humans, and that you'd probably be like, wow, that's disturbing, and I don't know why. And they're like, they're just hunting fish, and you're like, yeah, but I want them to stop, and I want them to die.
I wish they weren't hunting fish.
I get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That means it's my turn. So, I found a conspiracy theory that really wraps into a lot of the things we like to talk about here on NerdLore. Do you like aliens? Do you like
aliens?
Religions?
No.
Well,
I like a few.
Do you like people who say off-the-wall things? Maybe. So I have
then
all
you should
of those.
check out the NerdLore podcast.
So you're an hour deep in it, or 30 minutes deep into this podcast, but you should listen to us.
Yeah. So there's an individual, and he's a new age rapper. His name is Kid Buu. So Kid Buu from Dragon Ball Z. That's where you know the name from. And he has a Majin Buu tattoo on his forehead. So Kid Buu,
I don't even know what that means.
He has a big M on his head.
A big M on his forehead. Yeah, it's cool. So he claimed in an interview that he is not Kid Buu. He's Kid Buu Part 2. Which is, he is a second generation of himself because he was cloned. So he talks about what had happened in his previous life. He said that, the story that we know as his growing up was not the true story. He didn't grow up in this area here. They said he grew up in New Jersey, but he said it was Florida and stuff like that. He was a clone, and he also had a fraternal twin in the clone. And there is a company called CloneAid. And they not only cloned him, but they chose what memories to erase from his previous life. So the reason for this cloning is CloneAid is attempting to make the immortal human being. So in order, oh god, what's the show that was on Netflix? Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon.
Didn't you talk about that in one of our podcasts?
I might have talked about Altered Carbon, but I probably talked about the OA.
It was about the girl or whatever?
No, that's the OA. That was a good one too.
Okay,
but this theory, like Altered Carbon, they do the same thing in there. They basically clone people. Like you just get bodies. You get put in bodies.
Come on, dude, CloneAid, like you couldn't have thought of a better name, like a little less obvious.
He
sounds like clone Kool-Aid.
He said props up to CloneAid probably 20 times during the interviews that I was watching. He said that there's a fragment of bone inside your skull right here, and you guys can't see it, but it's basically right above the bridge of your nose. That holds your memories and your personality, like who you are, and that can transfer your total consciousness to another body. But he said, this can be altered as well. He said, just as you can scratch a CD, you could scratch part of this, bone or whatever it is, and it's going to get rid of parts of your life that you might not remember. Yeah, Eric. So he said that he's not the only person this has happened to. Gucci Mane is also a clone, according to him, and that's actually another theory. Gucci Mane went to jail. He came out, and Gucci Mane looked totally different when he came out of jail. He said this had happened to him. He was also a clone, Gucci Mane version 2.0. He also said this happened to Michael Jackson. He was the original kind of star that this had happened to. So
that's why his skin color changed. Is that why they're saying?
I don't know. He didn't get too deep into the Michael Jackson. He just alluded to it. Now, let's talk about where some of these theories came from. So he recalled a UFO encounter. The UFO encounter led him to a religion. The religion is called the Raelian movement, or Raelism. It's a religion that was founded in the 1970s by Franz Claude Vorm, or they'll call him Rael. And it's basically a group of like-minded individuals believe that life actually originates from UFOs. Now this whole theory, so he is now preaching for this Church of Raelism. And the Raelists believe that Jesus, Nostradamus, all of these individuals were prophets for Rael, which is the thing. And their current founder is the last incarnation of this thing, because after we started using nuclear weapons, we have marked humanity for destruction. So this individual is now a prophet for the Raelian movement. They believe that life was brought here by aliens, and our job was just to think. That's all we should be doing. We should spend our time thinking and becoming better. There's a lot more into the Raelian movement, but I would maybe save that for a wacky religion podcast.
Because dude, let's just break this down step by step. The dude has a big M tattooed on his forehead, right?
That's unrelated, clearly.
Yeah, hold on.
So he tattoos a big M, and it's to replicate, what was it? What did you say?
Majin Buu.
Because his name is Kid Buu.
Okay.
Yeet.
So the guy is obviously totally sane, right? To copy an anime and tattoo something on his forehead.
I know some normal people with face tats.
Let me get there.
Hold on. That's not that big of a deal.
So, okay.
Anime tattoos, they're getting popular.
No, I know, but come on, dude, on your forehead? Come on.
I bet you there are thousands of people that have done that.
But they're just as intelligent.
I think, though, in his line of work, like, face tats aren't going to hurt him being a rapper. Like,
I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying.
Okay,
let's break this down piece by piece. So you have a guy with a giant M on his forehead who claims that he is a clone, right?
Part 2, yeah. Version 2.0.
And that other people are also clones.
There's a couple.
The religion they believe in is that we all originate from alien life forms, and our job is to just sit around and think,
like, to better ourselves. Yeah.
And now that we've used nuclear war, we're not allowed to continue on? Well,
when the second coming of the alien species comes,
oh god,
some of us will be taken with them, but others will not, because humanity has doomed itself.
That's the rapture.
This reminds me of a joke, right? And it's the Pope. The Pope meets a bunch of aliens from another planet, right? And they're talking, and the aliens are like, "Oh man, Jesus is supposed to be coming next month. We got to get all of our chocolate." And the Pope says, "Chocolate?" And the aliens say, "Yeah, when Jesus comes, we gather the best chocolate from all the factories around our planet, and we offer it to him." And the Pope says, "Dang, he's only come to our planet one time. How often does he come to your planet?" He goes, "Oh, like every 6 months, probably." And he goes, he says, "Because we bring these." What did you do whenever he visited your planet?
Oh yeah. Oof. I wouldn't come back either. No, so the Raelian movement actually, like, totally bonkers, totally crazy. But they have a lot of really good supporting evidence. I'm not saying like flat earthers style, like we're like, hey, you can't see.
We are a giant frisbee floating through space.
There'd be no day and night. They turned the lamp off.
We rotate. They did. The sun rotates around us. What are you guys, stupid? No, there's some really neat stuff, which we could probably talk about another time because it's absolutely silly. But that is his belief. So the thing is,
I still can't get over how original the name is for the cloning store.
Clonate store. Clonate. Bro,
like, Clonate. Dude, I just feel like the guy is so messed up on drugs Like
he maybe. So and I talk more like about him. So I looked into it because I'm like, this guy, what? So I mean, he had a pretty rough upbringing. So he lived in a lot of the rougher areas of town. A lot of friends growing up he watched die, like get murdered and gang violence, silly stuff like that. And so as he's grown up, really there haven't been too many people that would consider themselves close to him to really corroborate these stories or anything else like that. But eventually he had met someone on Tinder, this lady, and they were together for a long time until eventually she kind of came out and said, yo, like, hey, this guy he's crazy, you know, he's verbally abusive, like all this other stuff. And it gets like crazier from there because he starts talking about like their relationship and everything they're going through, and he kind of ends it because the other guy's like, well, you know, was there any merit to what she's saying, you know, is that? And he said, no, you know, none of that abuse stuff happened. He's like, but again, it's like, this is just some girl I met on Tinder, like she's just chasing clout, so who could you believe? Are you going to believe her that she's saying this kind of crazy stuff, or are you going to believe me? And you know, I don't know if I'd ever believe him anything he says, but she corroborated and said that he believes a lot of these lies that he tells. That stories, correct, not lies, stories, because we can't prove they're fact or fiction. So he believes a lot of these stories that he tells, but again, she isn't saying, she isn't getting specific with things that are or are not true. I don't know. So this guy's got a lot going on, but there are multiple rappers that have people assume have been cloned or replaced. It's not just Gucci Mane. It's not Michael Jackson. Eminem, Avril Lavigne.
Stop! I hate that joke. I hate that. You know, Avril Lavigne was replaced by like a robot. This is so stupid.
Well, it would make sense because they do say that Metallica was a really, really good band until a bus crash when the aliens took over their body. So maybe that is whenever they
Clone-Aid got them.
Were cloned during the bus crash.
It was the more
it would make sense for Eminem too, right? Like he talks about how he died on the table.
Yeah. The more and more I read about this, I mean, it was silly from the start as soon as I started reading, but, you know, it gets deeper and deeper the further you research, and you get into, like, really weird Reddit boards of people saying crazy stuff, so maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I doubt it, but I can't tell what someone else to believe or not, but very interesting stuff.
I'm going to read into this, and I'm going to post on the Out of Context Twitter every day about how I'm an alien clone from Kool-Aid.
Clone-Aid. Yeah, it's Clone-Aid, not Kool-Aid.
Clones are us.
Yeah. First aid, whatever.
Right. Do you think if he would have made a better name for Clone-Aid, it would have made the story even better?
Yeah, made it a little bit more believable. Absolutely.
Yeah. What if he was like Gen X? Like that'd be a good name for it.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
Well, that has been my story.
And this has been the NerdLore podcast.
Oh, we got to do the outros.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before that, do you guys have any announcements before I start my thing?
Okay. So I usually go over games or things that you should be playing. Currently looking into a lot of stuff going kind of out. Last week I know that I talked about Valheim. A lot of games are coming out, and there is some really neat stuff coming out in the Pokemon world. More information about it soon. It's got some backlash. You can see one of the other hosts is going crazy. Got a little backlash, but people are usually salty. Just keep on the watch for it, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what they do. Ruby and Sapphire.
Is that the new one?
No, Diamond and Pearl.
Pokemon Lavender and Vanilla Extract?
Yeah, it was like
Vanilla Extract. But there's some exciting stuff coming out, so just kind of wait for that. Slated for the end of this year. Definitely something to look into, especially if you're a longtime fan. That's what I got.
Skandle, do you have a music recommendation for us?
Absolutely. So there is a DJ in the Denver, Colorado area. His name is Freddie Rule. You should 100% check that dude out, especially if you like house music. He puts a lot of bass in it. It's good stuff.
Spell it for me.
Freddie, Freddy, Rule.
Oh, yeah.
Freddie Rule.
Denver. Okay. So I still haven't figured out the formula for this, so bear with us. Thank you very much for checking out the NerdLore podcast. Please feel free to check us out on Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Our next podcast we have coming out scheduled. Next week, we're going to do Terrible Job Stories Part 2 with a possibly special guest.
Yeah.
And so we have a couple of solo projects in the works. Shiny, are you still working on your thing?
Yeah, I got a little bit of it already put together, but
all right. I'm going to try to start a music one. We're going to see if we can put together some stuff.
We're going to try.
I don't know how long it's going to take to get together.
And I'm working on some solo things, but just to give you guys a little taste of that, the main solo one that I'm going to try and find a formula for is going to be on Genshin Impact lore. So look forward to that.
How much do I have to pay to unlock the lore?
You have to roll for it.
Oh no! I'm never going to get it all. Oh, nice.
The dragon.
Yeah, you never get it, dude.
I'll be dragging my balls across.
I'll be dragging my balls across the space later on. So good. Oh, poor DM. Poor DM.
Hey, sorry.
Well, this has been the NerdLore podcast. Thank you guys for coming out. This has been Shiny Shoes.
This has been a
Skandle, baby.
See you guys next time.